Hello out there. Welcome to the CUT Collective's Rewind podcast. It's Rev Sheree here. I'm excited to be here hosting this for you today as we are coming into the reason for the season, right? It's Christmas season and we're going to unpack just maybe Jesus and the Christ in a way you may not have heard it before. I'm really excited about today's experience today. We're talking with in the hot seat, Reverend Gaylon McDowell, who delivered a powerful word on Sunday. And we're looking at Rev, you're gonna have to give me when you pop on here the title of the lesson because it's not in front of me. But what we're definitely gonna do is look at the reason for the season. We're gonna look at Jesus and Christmas and maybe a new light. It may give you a new way of looking at how we work with this. With Jesus, how we work with the birth of the Christ metaphysically. So I'm excited about it. It's called Awakening to the Christ. That's the name of the message. And we're going to talk about Christ in you. Before I bring Rev on into the scene, what I would like for you to do is if you're listening live with us, go ahead and share this message out. It's always nice to have something to talk to people about and they can hear it fresh right with you. So go ahead and share this if you're watching us on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you are, and tap in with us that way. Also, I want to invite you into the collective. So the CUT Collective is the online ministry for Christ Universal Temple based out of Chicago, Illinois, but we are rocking worldwide. And so if you are, whether you're in Chicago or not, I want to invite you to join the collective. You can do that. We have a great little Facebook group that you can join. And, conversations like this don't have to just happen here on the podcast. You can tune in and ask your questions. I'll fold them into the conversations, but that's your opportunity there to be a part of this collective, our community, because we're all out here growing individually, but there is power in the collective. There is power when we come together. So that's what we're offering for you today. So as you're going ahead and liking, subscribing, and sharing wherever you're watching, I want to encourage you to go ahead and click into Facebook. Let this be a Facebook group that you join and engage in. We really appreciate that. And if you're also with us live too, you have the opportunity to chat along with us. If you leave comments, I'll fold those comments again into the conversation, because what we're doing here, the true intention of the rewind is to unpack the lesson, because there's only so much you can do in the 30 minutes of a lesson sermon. And sometimes there are nuggets that just need some time and attention. So we want to give that to you here today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Reverend Gaylon McDowell into the scene. I'm so excited to work with this one. I love Christmas time, so I'm excited to get in here and work with this Jesus Christ concept.
I'm glad to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm grand. I'm some of you all, if you've been following, I'm kind of popping in and around different places in the world right now. I'm back on the West Coast and excited to be here for a little bit. So in the meantime, though, in between time, as we are over here experiencing 70, 80 degree weather,
man,
it's like being in another world, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yes. It's gonna be frigid this weekend, not cold, frigid.
Yeah. Bless y'all in this weather.
Wind chill factor -20 type stuff. It's gonna be cold.
When you know what the wind chill factor is, that's how you know you live where it's someplace that's chilly. So bless all of you all in there. Like I admire, because I grew up in the Midwest. I can get my Midwest skin. But it is truly amazing when you are stepping out into that voluntarily. Like if you don't have to go someplace and you're stepping out. So shout out to those who are still showing up to church, no matter the weather, because we know the power that's in the room. And for those who are clicking in and dialing in, you get a chance to be with us today too. So, it's all good. It's all good both ways. So this tell me about this series, because we're heading into the holiday season, and in the temple, it's celebration. I mean, you can just feel the energy from the platform. But talk to me about the message that the intention for the messages this month in this particular series.
Okay, well, the series is discovering the Christ in you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea, obviously based upon a new thought concept, that you don't discover the Christ outside of yourself. You always discover the Christ in you, your hope of glory. So I started it off with awakening to the Christ, which was about becoming consciously aware of the presence of God within yourself. What does that look like? How does that show up in your life? What does it mean even? The next, this upcoming sermon is Follow the Light, which will be the Reverend Roderick Norton, which will be more breaking down the Matthew narrative of the birth of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
all the metaphysical symbology, all that stuff. On the third Sunday, on the 21st, we're going to have the Christmas concert and candle lighting service, which tends to be our most well-attended service of the year.
I love that.
It's an extended service. Instead of 10:30 to 12, it's 10:30 to 12:30. People have an opportunity to sing their favorite Christmas songs. And and especially in the Black culture, we have certain songs, gospel songs and Christmas melodies that are part of our culture.
Yeah.
And I think the music department, Monte and Martin, they do a great job of getting the music team together to present that. And then we do the lighting of the Christ candle, and then the 12 candles representing 12 disciples of Jesus, etc. The congregation gets involved with the shake and break, glow sticks, the whole nine. People dress up, they have their Christmas gear on. So it's a wonderful thing. So I would highly recommend to people, if you're in the space, check us out this month. And if you're in the city, you definitely want to check in, especially for the Christmas concert on the last Sunday of the month. Even though it's under the Discover the Christ in You, I'm preaching on that Sunday. And I decided, instead of doing a holiday lesson, I'm doing a preparation for 2026 lesson called Ready to Upgrade. And, I was, hearing that Beyonce song in my brain, upgrade you. Well, what happens when you upgrade yourself? And that's what we're going to talk about and go from there.
I'm a big fan of prepping for the new year. Like I don't want to miss the season, the Christmas season, but prepping for the new year is my jam. You know how much I love vision boarding and all of that.
Yes.
And I'm excited about the work we're doing for next year with the theme. Like, it's built different. We're built different. And so we're talking about how am I built different and how do I build my life differently, because it's all about a better life.
Yes.
No matter what the New Year's resolutions are, typically it's like, I want better. I want more out of me, out of my life. And so yeah, I'm excited about the slate that's here. There's a lot of celebration. And but as a practical Christianity, where the celebration is part of it, but it's like, well, how am I growing? If I'm not, if I'm just singing the songs and saying the words, how is it shifting and transforming my soul, my life, my experiences? So
yeah, and you never know. I had a person call me yesterday, and he's like, "Hey, you got 10 minutes?" and explain to me a wonderful testimony, a healing of cancer without chemotherapy. Just yesterday. This stuff works.
Yeah.
But as a smart lady used to say, it works
if you work
it.
Yeah. That's no truer words have been spoken.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's I think about the times that things have worked out in my life in a great way. And it's like, well, what did I really know? Right. Was I working something that I knew, or am I still like in the space of looking for luck, kind of like this? Reverend Della often talked about unmerited favor, and it was like it's a special thing, but no, you're perpetually in unmerited favor. God's grace doesn't come if you're a good boy or a good girl, but you open the door to it. You open your experience, your mind to it. And so that shifted the way that I think about it, in terms of like, it really does work when I work it, when I'm working these principles. One of the things that the awakening to the Christ is a big part. I mean, it is the lesson. It's your lesson for this day. And I'm going to talk about the Christ in you, but I want to just talk about like how can we understand what it means for anybody, whether you are aware of, or whether you are a student of practical Christianity, of metaphysics or not. Like, what does it mean to awaken to the Christ?
Simple definition: to become consciously aware of the presence and power of God in you, the Spirit of God in you, your spiritual identity. That's the easiest and quickest way I can say it. Just as Jesus discovered the presence and power of God within himself, we have to do the same. Hopefully that's a simple answer, unless you want me to go in greater detail.
Okay, I think we may have lost you for a second, but don't go in greater detail, because I wanted to you're so okay, let me give you a little bit about Reverend Gaylon McDowell. So he says the hardcore metaphysician. He's also the reader of all the books and the sender of all the of all of the articles. So I stay up on the game because I listen, I could spend all my life reading the references you send. But I looked at a video you sent about the unity. So if you just a little bit of our history, that the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which Christ Universal Temple is a member, the mother church of, was originally Reverend Johnny Coleman was a minister in Unity and broke off from Unity. And so he sent this great video of Unity talking about the 5 principles. And one of the things that I think that the Unity movement does well is they have a high intent, I think, of making their language easy to understand so that anybody can grab hold to their ideas. So shout out to Unity and shout out to those who are members of Unity churches. But one of the things they talked about is, like that principle. We share that same principle that humankind is divine, that we are divine. So to awaken the Christ in you is first just an acknowledgement that there's more to you than that appears, that whether you want to lean into I'm divine or not, whether you're ready for that, but that you're more than what you appear is to me a first step, right? To awakening to your divinity, to the Christ within you.
Yes, absolutely. We call it the divinity of humankind.
And then I think the other thing is like it's little things that I think that as you are taught, we think about Jesus Christ as like Christ is his last name. Like I'm Sheree Thompson. So Jesus was Jesus Christ. And so Christ, and to start talking about there's a Christ within me, it doesn't, those two things don't go together. Right.
Right.
So there's this idea of your divinity that I think is, I don't want to get it because I want to share the clip where you talk about what is the Christ. I'm going to save that for the clip, but I'm going to go into this first one where you're talking about Paul's teachings about Christ in you, your hope of glory. So in scripture, and this is something that I think all of us as Bible students, as those who want deeper understanding, that sometimes the deeper understanding isn't even deep. It's right there on the surface, but it's the part you miss, right? So if Christ can be in me and there is a Christ in me, doesn't that lean to there's something greater about me, something more than my humanity? So it's not a stretch to say that you're divine. It's we're looking at what's scripturally based as well. So, all right, let me play this clip and then we're gonna come back.
All right.
Scripture even says spiritual things must be what? Spiritually discerned. The Apostle Paul wrote about the mystery he was trying to teach the early Christians. He wrote it in Colossians chapter 1, verses 24 and 27. He wrote, I became his minister according to God's commission that was given to me for you, to make the word of God fully known, the mystery that has been hidden throughout the ages and generations, but has now been revealed to his saints. To them God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. He considered the idea of the Christ in you a mystery. He considered it the hope of glory. When you awaken to the Christ in you, everything changes.
So that's a hardcore statement right there. When you awaken to the Christ in you, everything changes. So what is it that keeps, so here's a question. What keeps people accepting that the Christ is actually in them and not just in Jesus, but like in me?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, we have to make the distinction between the physical human being, Jesus, and the spirit of God in him that he so magnificently expressed. Now, some people, when they hear statements like the Christ is the principle, Christ is the idea, God's idea of itself, etc., Jesus was the human being, which I tried to explain in the sermon. that so magnificently express the Christ potential, the Christ idea, the Christ principle. Some people might get upset from that because they haven't heard that type of language before. I just invite you to the possibility that nothing I or anyone else can say can ever devalue or demote Jesus. Jesus is who Jesus is, but you don't have to demote yourself to promote Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. Jesus can be divine, and so can you. That's what I'm trying to get across.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's just dive into Jesus real quick, just a little bit, because you talk about making a distinction between Jesus the man and now Jesus as this idea. Talk to me a little bit more about that distinction.
Okay, well, it depends on, it's levels to it.
Right.
So I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can. Now, historically, there was a Jesus of Nazareth, all right, and who's considered the founder of Christianity. You know, if you're a believer, there are beliefs that go along with that. If you're not, there's just historical things you understand about it.
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about New Thought Christianity, we can look at it from two different ways. One, we separate the human personality, Jesus, from the Christ idea or the principle of the Spirit of God within humanity. We teach that Jesus so magnificently expressed and manifested the Christ potential, the Christ idea within him, that he's Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus. Jesus being the understanding. This is now a level deeper. Jesus symbolizing the understanding use of that potential, the understanding use of the principle, the understanding use of the spiritual idea called the Christ. The Christ is the potential. The Christ is the seed. The Christ is the power and presence of God within you. Jesus then in us symbolizes that aspect of us that is consciously aware and knows how to use and express the Christ presence and potential. All right. So when you are fully aware and awakened to your Christ potential, and I'm not saying I know anybody that is, but if you are, then metaphysically speaking, you are now Jesus Christ, not the human being of Nazareth, but the God awakened individual. That's all that means.
Mm-hmm.
And for some who might come from more fundamentalist backgrounds, what I said right now might be considered blasphemy. What I'm inviting you to is the conversation of Jesus never, according to what he said in the Gospels, wanted to be alone in mastery. He invited people up to where he was.
So Jesus representing the idea, because this is kind of how I first interpreted the way that what you said is that essentially the path of my unfoldment is recognizing that I am the Christ, and the expression of the Christ is what Jesus demonstrated, that to fully express and embody the Christ idea. And I have that potential as well.
Yeah.
So so I think that when we're looking at one of the ways that Reverend Della Reese, who was one of my first teachers, my spiritual mother, what she would talk about is, you talked about you put Jesus up there, you can be up there too. And she was like, you can put Jesus on a pedestal, but climb up there too, right? Climb up there and recognize that if you are working with this idea, it doesn't exclude you. Your divinity, the divinity of Jesus doesn't exclude you.
Right.
And that was a way for me to start to kind of think about this concept that I was taught, and where do I grow from here? Right? Because it's not so much that we're calling anybody right or wrong. I was never told that anybody was right or wrong. It was like, where do you grow from here? This is a space. And there was a way of thinking about it that then I can apply to my life, so that I'm not just pointing at that's what Jesus did. But he said, greater things can I do. So how can I do greater things if I'm not endowed with the same qualities that Jesus is? If I don't have the same makeup that Jesus has, and how can I possibly do greater things? Well, so that's what started to help me get a openness.
Well, to paraphrase the Aramaic Bible, Assyrian, I think he was, Bible scholar, Dr. George Lamsa, who taught our friend, Dr. Rocco Errico, he would say, paraphrase, for Jesus to say, follow me to human beings, and we didn't have the capacity to do that, will be like a duck saying to chickens, follow me as I swim in the lake.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say, a duck can't say to chickens, swim with me, when they have webbed feet and the ability to float, and
Mm-hmm.
chickens don't. So there's no reason to tell somebody, follow me. There's no reason to say the works I do, you can do in greater works, if you don't have the capacity to do so.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I love that. I love that. I haven't heard that metaphor before. So
I
this
read a lot.
identity. Say it again.
I read a lot.
I know you read a lot. I know you read a lot, and you retain a lot. You retain
Yeah.
a lot. I love that about you. And listen, we know that that's one of your ways of practicing the presence of God is through spiritual study. It's one of my ways too.
Yeah.
So there's a beauty in that, and I love that. You know, you got to have friends that read too much so that they can help you to kind of pick and choose. Like,
Yeah.
you read too much or you read a lot. Okay, give me the highlights. Give me the ones I should really go get. I can't tell you how many books in here I have that were in a text or email that you sent to me.
I got more.
Always good stuff. Always good stuff. All right. So my next clip is about this idea of the Christ. So if we're talking about the Christ awakening and that being something that the Christ being awakened, the Christ in me is my hope of glory. So let's talk about what the Christ is a little bit more. So I'm going to share this clip and then we'll unpack it some more. But the perspective, oh, my camera went down. The perspective that you shared is from a metaphysical perspective. So I'm going to play that and then we'll unpack it some.
Okay.
What does the word Christ mean metaphysically? Real basic definition. Christ is God's idea of itself. Christ is the composite idea that contains all divine ideas. Christ is the Word of God. Christ is the creative power of God. Christ is the I am. Christ is the Son of God. Christ is the true potential in everyone. Metaphysically, Jesus as a human perfectly expressed the Christ. He was and is Jesus Christ, or the perfect demonstration of the Christ idea. Christ is the seed idea of God. Jesus is the understanding use of the seed idea. Jesus Christ is the perfect demonstration of the seed idea.
So, goodness grief, this is such a powerful and it can be so deep, and I love how you've simplified it in a way that we can kind of wrap our minds around it. So this metaphor of the seed, right? So the idea of my divinity is the seed, and that is the Christ.
Yes.
The Christ is a seed idea in me that, like any seed, can be nurtured to grow, or it can be stifled and remain dormant as just a seed that never gets the right soil to grow in.
Right. It depends on the conditions.
Depending on the conditions. So
Yes.
what are the conditions for this awakening? Like, what are the what's the conditioning for this seed called the Christ to grow in me? Because it's my hope of glory.
Yes. So obviously we're talking about a complete shift in paradigm. First of all, the first shift is, do I believe that there is a power and potential within me, this seed idea called the Christ? Because you have to start there. All right. Do I believe that there's something more than what my five senses can detect about me? There's more than meat and skin and bone and blood. Now, once we get there, now we're dealing with the prayer work within the context of that belief. Now we're dealing with the meditation, the visualization, the visioning, the spiritual study and contemplation. So we teach that where your attention goes, your power flows. So how much attention is being put on your own divinity, on your own divine nature? And as you put attention on it, you awaken it. As you do your inner prayer work, your spiritual work, we would say, go within. The more you go within and the more you touch the hem of the garment of the silence of God within you, the more it awakens in you. Now, at the speed in which it does it, I can't speak to that because we're all individual souls.
Right.
So I can't say. What I can say is this. There's a peace, there's an alignment that I really can't explain in human words. I can remember in 2010 when my mom had I was taking care of my mother. She was living with me, and I went to the store. My sister Lisa was at the house, and she had my mother basically flatlined, heart attack in my living room, and she passed away. They revived her, took her to the hospital, revived her 5 more times. Then we ended up doing a life support hospice, and eventually she was out of here and moved on to her next experience in the presence. And I can remember, because obviously I love my mother dearly, and that was a lot to go through. I can remember touching the Christ in me at such a level that I had no concept of mortality, no concept of worry, no concept of fear, grief, nothing. People were like, people think, oh, we got terms for this now, spiritual bypassing and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. It forced me to stop and just be with the Christ in me, my own spiritual identity. So, it was, as John the Baptist says, I must decrease so he can increase. The more of this human personality, the more of this human ego can decrease, the more of the Christ can awaken within us. There's always going to be, through the faculty of will, the decision, the choice to how much of the human personality, my likes, dislikes, my quirks and all this other stuff that I'm going to allow to dominate versus the amount of attention, time, and how much I'm going to surrender to the higher awareness, the higher spirituality, the higher consciousness within myself. So I always tell people, one of the ways in which you grow very quickly spiritually is you have to be vulnerable to the presence of God in you. Mm-hmm. And vulnerability is a scary thing, because we live in a life where we try to maintain control, and we try to hold on to things and keep things in the way in which we think it should be. But spirituality and surrender and vulnerability requires you to let go. And letting go can be very scary. I'm not telling people anything that I'm not aware of. And because as the newness in you emerges, it changes and transforms you. Some things you used to like, you don't like anymore. Some people you used to be around, you can't be around anymore. Some things you used to engage with, people you used to engage with, you can't do it anymore. Why? Because it's like Jesus said it best. He said, the kingdom of God is like a grain of mustard seed that's planted in the ground. And then when it grows up, it becomes a plant where the birds of the air can sit on. And Dr. Rocco Errico, he loves to tell people that a mustard seed grows like a wild weed, that no farmer would plant mustard seeds with the other harvest, because it takes over. So when this truth starts to awaken in you, like that mustard seed, like a weed that just starts to take over your lawn, this truth starts to take over. It starts to choke out the old era beliefs, old ways, old personality, likes, dislikes, and whatever. It starts to dominate. And that transformative process, because it's so it's so vulnerable. You're transforming, and sometimes your transformation is faster than either you can sometimes keep up with, but it's definitely sometimes more than the people that are around you can keep up with, because it literally is creating a new you. If you really awaken to the Christ, you should not be the same person.
So there, when you're introducing us to the idea of the Christ, and that you said, I don't know anybody who is demonstrating it at the level of Jesus. You said something to that respect.
Yeah.
And I would just say that's not true. I meant to challenge you on that, because You are demonstrated. It's will you sustain that? Are you able to sustain that level of awareness? And that may be where we have the opportunity. But I do think that this isn't an idea that, no, I've never experienced the Christ. Yes, you have, right? You shared your testimony.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying people haven't done it. I'm talking about sustained consciousness.
Sustaining it. And listen, we can have a conversation, because I will chat. Did Jesus sustain it? We saw a journey.
No, I agree. I will say his baseline was a little high, though.
Yeah, for sure. for sure. But listen, I've done a lot of work on, I pedestal people. That's one of the things that I have learned to stop doing.
Yeah.
And so with that, I always challenge, like, well, wait a minute. We all go through stuff. So this is to say that Jesus always, was above his human experience? No.
Right.
So that helped me to, because I'm trying to wrap my mind around my divinity. And so I'm willing to challenge the idea of Jesus in order to get a better understanding of my divinity. And I think that is something that, when I first, how I grew up is that you just didn't question anything, because it meant that you didn't have any faith, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you don't have to demote yourself to promote Jesus.
That's it. So if you are wrestling with an idea, this is just somebody shared this with you and you're not familiar with metaphysical Christianity, practical Christianity, New Thought Christianity, those are terms that are unfamiliar. Is it to say that the one thing that was a magnet for me to this belief tradition was that I could question what I didn't understand? That not understanding or questioning something that I have been taught wasn't a denouncement of my faith, or, I'm not a believer. It was, I can get an understanding with all that getting. Like, I can get an understanding, and it doesn't crumble the religion. My question doesn't crumble the religion. So just that's been my own personal journey. But I love this idea. I love the seed idea, and that there is something in me that needs to be nurtured, right? Because if I'm thinking about a seed, I know that seeds need to be nurtured. I've become someone who acquires plants, and I have since learned to keep these plants alive. Now, they're not always the happiest plants, but I can keep them alive. But I've been on the road. I've been back east, and so I had a friend take all my plants so that they could, because when I travel, sometimes that's what we have in a disagreement. But they took my plants, and so this friend of mine is telling me that my plants are happier in their house than they were here in my house. And they are threatening not to give me my plants back, right? Because there's something about the nurturing that they're doing a little differently, right? That they're getting more out of the same plant than I was getting.
Yes.
So I hear this, they're not keeping my plants, right? They're not going to keep my plants. Maybe that one tree, because that tree is finicky, but they're not keeping my plants. But the idea, though, that I'm looking at how can I think about myself this way, that I do want to grow and evolve, and there are parts of my life that I don't want to release. You know what I mean? It's like when you'll see someone and you're hanging around friends that aren't necessarily working with the same idea of their divinity as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I gave an example of to one of my coaching clients about the energy around them. And I'm saying that I know that I've been in a caregiving space. And so I have, as a caregiver, there's a certain thing I'm focused on. Whereas right before I started caregiving, it was really about business. Like I had every other conversation, I'm talking about audience and business and, building. And so I had friends that were in that same way. We that's what we talked about. We mastermind together and all of that. Those friends, I'm not necessarily around as much. We're not talking as much because that's not where my mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it pained me to kind of like not have those close connections, but it's just interim.
Yeah.
It's where I am interim. But that came up when you said that there are things in your experience that are going to change as you begin to realize who you are. And I think that even in terms of like realizing myself as this prosperous child of God, as opposed to realizing myself more as this force of healing,
mm-hmm.
who I am resonating with right now is just different. Like, and it's, instead of fighting for what's old, it's like embracing where I am right now. That's my
Absolutely.
my own personal moment of growth. But this is what we have to do. I think this, like these conversations that we're having are meant for you to take and work with. Like we don't get these revelations sometimes just right. Oh, I heard the sermon and, it moved me. It's like, wait a minute, let's get back down to the heart of it. You got really, really clear about awakening to Christ, why, and then what is the Christ. And I think that that's something, please go chew on that. This lesson sermon is from December 9th. No, December 7th. 2025. You can find it at CU Temple on YouTube. And I encourage you to listen to it in its entirety, because I'm really just kind of teasing out, this one piece. One of the things that you had mentioned in the lesson, I feel like it's a key question, is about putting God first.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what does putting God first look like? Because I've been told that Christ in me is my hope of glory. I've been told that there is a divine spark, a seed idea in me that is waiting for me to bring it into expression. So what does putting God first have to do with that? And then how do you do it?
Okay, so I'm gonna use an example I didn't use in the sermon. When we interact with other individuals, whether intimately or as a friend, what is the primary way in which you develop relationship? Mm-hmm. Time, attention, care. All right. So, how much time do you spend on your spiritual nature, the cultivation of it? All right. Prayer, meditation, reading the Bible, reading spiritual material, journaling, vision board, visualizing, whatever your tools are. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. Okay. Attention. It goes back to it yet again. Where your attention goes, your power flows. How much attention am I giving to my own spiritual nature? And then obviously we start talking about care. And when you care about something, you're sensitive to how it moves.
Right.
Now, in the context of spirit, if God is first, that means that God, I'm seeking God's guidance, God in me. I'm not talking about, yes, God is omnipresent, but my point of reference is within myself. Am I seeking God's guidance, or am I trying to just do what I want to do and I'm going to God just to fix it when I mess it up? All right. Am I going to God's guidance about all the stuff, not some of the stuff, the money, the intimate relationships, the friendships, the career, the success, the planning, the goals, all of that stuff? Am I going to God about it? Am I praying about it? Am I seeking understanding? Am I seeking answers within? Am I living based upon what I understand up to this point? I'm not saying I got to be up here, but can I live something that I understand now?
Yes.
Versus it's just my zodiac sign, or it's just my birth number, or it's just my whatever, and all these external things. I'm not saying that these things don't have impressions upon people. That's not my role to tell you what you should or shouldn't accept. But all of those things are putting God under. When you do that, you're putting those things above the presence of God in you, trying to figure out who you are. And if your personality, if your belief system, if your mouth and actions are trying to go one way, and spirit is saying to go another way and do it differently, then you're at a crossroad.
Yeah.
And as Joshua said, choose this day whom you will serve. That's really putting God first. So it's not walking around with the Bible under your arm or the church hat. It's, am I living in a way that reflects my understanding of God, understanding of the Christ in me, the understanding of living from a paradigm of love, peace, understanding, and power. I don't mean you got to be a weakling, but power in the context of God, not abusive, but productive and constructive. Versus, I got to get that person a piece of my mind, or I'm going to, or the, or even if I'm not doing it, I'm thinking violence in my mind. I'm feeling violence. See, sometimes it never comes out of our mouth or we don't do a thing. But as remember when Reverend Thompson used to always say, everybody's not safe in your on the streets of your mind.
Your mind.
Everyone's not safe on the streets of your mind. But here's the problem. If that's your consistent contemplation, sooner or later, it's going to find expression.
Absolutely.
Maybe that expression is how you talk to your children or your spouse or your coworkers or your subordinates. Sometimes it might show up as road rage or how you talk to the cashier at the grocery store. But sooner or later, that arrow that you're carrying has to show up one way or another.
Yeah. It could be the walls you put up, right? So that you're just blocking your own receiving of love and appreciation and acceptance. Just a putting God first, is, we have a principle, practicing the presence of God. And I always think about as the relationship builder, that if a stranger tells you can give you the best advice, if you go over there and say yes to that particular request, that will put you in a space of overflowing prosperity. Well, I don't know you. Are you trying to get me into something? Or like, I don't have a relationship with you. So the likelihood that I will trust you and trust that guidance is limited. So relationship building is definitely what I was hearing out of what you're saying. And so I mentioned that, that Rev is a avid reader, and really, really well versed on a lot of the spiritual texts that we use as we study, and then also just kind of like what's popping off new, and all of that stuff is a part of how he studies. But there are other ways to study. He named some of the other ways I should say, built relationship with God, and because to put God first is to know who and what God is in you at your level of awareness. And I want to, I think that I had heard that in my early, my early journey into New Thought. And I'll always put myself into, like, when I get to that place of enlightenment, then I will be able to know who God is. That last part, at my level of awareness, that God is right where I am at my level of awareness, helped me to stop putting it off to, like, off in the future, that I can't experience God until it's off in the future. So this space right now is very helpful to hear that I can put God first, how I understand God right now.
Yeah, and I think that people have to really get past the investment that they have in their own personality. I think that that's something that is underestimated. People say, how I am, how I move, versus how is God, how is what I'm doing right now giving glory to God in this moment? And, one of the things that, I remember when I first started doing the spiritual work and then becoming a minister, I had to explain to the people around me, not bad people, loving people, but they didn't have anything to protect. And I was like, okay, I have to protect this concept of I move a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
So, I never forget, I was watching this interview of the rapper Ice-T, who's been on Law and Order SVU for like 25 years now. And he was saying that when he shifted from being a street person to a rapper, the first thing he had to tell the people was, hey, I'm going to make this entertainment business thing work. So keep whatever, I love y'all.
Right.
Keep the drama
away from me. Yeah.
He said, matter of fact, don't even tell me about it. I don't even want to know. He wanted legitimate deniability on anything that was silly. And I would bet $1 to a donut that the people who did not evolve with him drifted away.
Absolutely. That's the thing, is that some of it is intentional. Like, okay, there's a Reverend Della story I'll tell. So if you were around Reverend Della for any amount of time, you know that she didn't drink out of paper or plastic, right? You had to bring her glass. Typically, it was a nice glass. And I don't know where that started, right? I didn't hear her ever say, don't bring me any glass. I mean, don't bring me any paper. Don't bring me a bottle, right? You have to put, I don't ever remember hearing her say that. But because of how she showed up in the world, people would stop you from doing stuff like that, right? Like it was, it's what she attracted to herself. And so there is a this idea of like, I like nice things, I deserve nice things, and I'm worthy of nice things that went before her. And there was always a meeting of where she was, wherever she was. People were producing quality like, and it's not to say, like I said, I've never heard her turn her head. You just couldn't even get it to her because somebody was going to say, hey, like, no, even if they knew that about her or not, I've seen it just happen time and time again. Don't give Reverend Della that on that paper plate. I have a nice plate that I can give it to her on. Like it was just around her. That, and it's a silly thing, but it is the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, since you brought up your story, I have a favorite Della Ree story that has nothing to do with spirituality at all. It's nothing bad. It's nothing bad. So she came here to speak. I think it was around 2005, 2006, and when I would go into the office with Reverend Coleman, this was right before Reverend Coleman retired. Reverend Coleman always told me, bring your daughter with you into the office. She always wanted me to bring Angel in, and Angel at that time 5, 6 years old. So she walks into the office, and she's looking at Reverend Della Reese, and she's like perplexed. And so Reverend Della said something to her, and Angel said to her, aren't you That's So Raven's grandmama? Because she saw her on the Disney show, That's So Raven, with Raven Simone.
No, I love the children's versions of the Della stories. She was taking a couple of the kids from the church to a Lakers game. And they come back and was like, Mom, is Reverend Della famous? Like it's just, this is just my minister.
Yeah.
Is Reverend Della famous? Like it was so funny.
Angel was perplexed that,
and she's sitting in Reverend Johnny's office.
Grandmama is at her church in the minister's office. Yeah, that was mind blowing for her. Yeah. So anyway,
I love that. I love
it. We get back on track now, but it still warms my heart.
Yes, that is a sweet story. That is. I've got a ton of them. Just some really great, like one of the things I love about our this organization, Universal Foundation for Better Living, it's just some amazing people that have been just a part of my spiritual growth and development. I whenever I'm at Christ Universal Temple, because my home church is Up Church in LA, founded by Reverend Della Reese, and I didn't understand truly the impact that I still get from Reverend Johnny Coleman, because Reverend Della was my spiritual mother. But the more I learned about Reverend Johnny Coleman, I'm like, oh, this was her teacher. She said it was her buddy, but that was her teacher. Yeah. And so I said a lot of those little sayings, like, oh no, Reverend Johnny said that first. It's like, okay, I love it. I love that we get the opportunity to be impacted by, you talk about being vulnerable. Right? Being vulnerable to grow. And I think as leaders, to be growing in front of people, it is something to say that I'm on a spiritual journey and I'm going to put myself in position where people can watch me on my journey that I'm teaching them about. Like it's a vulnerable place. I try to be as transparent as I can be, because I think that some people are disillusioned with spiritual community because they pedestaled a spiritual leader who walked their walk, and maybe they were taught to hide who they were as they taught and led spiritual community. But it takes away something from people when they feel that inauthenticity from somebody that they're learning from spiritually. So I've always just, I endeavor to live my best life, to live according to principle, but I'm transparent. I'm a work in progress.
Well, I think children get it better. Jesus said, permit the children to come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of God. I think the reason why is because children are willing to be open and receptive and vulnerable and try. When you talk to people, sometimes I ask them, when's the last time you were a beginner in something that you really
Yeah.
wanted to do? Like, I call it, when was the last time you were a white belt? Because, you know, there are times when you get a certain way of being in your life, when people start saying, okay, let's try something new, you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to look bad. So you don't try. And that ends up stopping you from the ability of enhancing yourself or creating or something new or something emerging in you. You know, so children have the ability to be able to just get up, try it again, do something new, do
Mhm.
something different. And it doesn't bother them that they failed until we condition them
Right.
that that's bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, because of perception. So what ends up happening is the majority of the reason why people don't awaken to the crisis because they're distracted by what everybody else is thinking and believing and what is possible and what's not possible, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be putting your attention on and what you shouldn't be putting your attention on, versus being authentic to yourself, to your own spirituality. I can remember, you mind if I share a quick story?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can remember when I was a kid, I was my grandmother had a niece named Tina, and I should remember going around her as a kid. Her story was basically she was a woman who got sick before I was born, and she went to the elders in her family, including my grandmother, and she wanted to live long enough for her children to become adults. All her, I think she had three children. Anyway, so you know they prayed her through to her adulthood, and then as I'm coming along, she's starting to dwindle now. So, you know, I'm a little kid, you know, maybe 4 or 5, whatever. And I can remember certain memories of about being by her bedside and things. And then she made her transition. So we're at the funeral, and the way the home was set up, you know, they had the casket and they had a background behind the casket and the preacher talking to the side and the rows behind. So there's my grandfather in the row is my grandfather. There's my grandmother. There's me. There's my sister. And there's my mom. And I started to realize that I'm seeing my Aunt Tina standing behind her casket, but nobody else can see her. So I'm calling on my grandmother, Boy, be quiet. Boy, be quiet. Boy, be quiet. We get up and when we do the final walkthrough. So now we're walking up to do the final viewing. And I'm clearly seeing this woman. And I'm clowning now because nobody's believing me. And my grandmother keep trying to make me quiet, trying to get me quiet. And, you know, I share this story. My mother told me later, like, I believe you. Something similar happened to me and my mother didn't believe me then. And I'm a big believer that these things are normal and natural.
Yeah.
But for those who don't believe it or don't see it or have had life squeeze the belief in something beyond the senses out of them, I had some level of spiritual ability to see that I don't currently have available to me. It's still in there.
Right. Right.
But I was told at a very early age, boy, shut up. Acting up. And you know, when we were growing up, if you acted up too much, you knew what you were going to get when you got home.
Right. Right. Ain't nobody gonna tolerate it, but for so long, for so much. Yeah.
My grandmother was liberal with it. So so after a while, you gotta cycle that down.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, if there would have been conversations around the cultivation of that, what that meant.
Oh yeah.
You know, we squeeze the higher awareness out of people unintentionally. My grandmother, who was a very spiritual woman, by the way, a prayer warrior, but because she couldn't see that potential in me
Right.
at that time, she saw it later. She couldn't see and because I could see what she couldn't see at the time, she dismissed it as childhood imagination.
Right.
And I'm literally describing her, trying to. And my
Yeah.
grandmother is like,
Yeah,
"Boy, you better
that
shut up."
divine spark, that divine seed is in us and nurturing, and it is just that what soil, like there, where have you, and that's a question that we can all ask, where have I closed my eyes to my own divinity,
Yeah.
like to that spiritual nature that I don't spiritually discern. I don't believe in what I'm reported to beyond my five senses anymore,
Mhm.
right? Because I've been told to focus on that, and that's what's real.
Yeah.
And so you get to choose now. One of the gifts I'm getting out of supporting my mom right now is just really looking at what habits look like over time. And so it's not so much, you talked about becoming like a child, trying something new, but I realized that doing new things is a habit.
Mhm.
Regardless of what that thing is, if it's taking a different route to the store, if it's watching television programming that you typically wouldn't watch, if it's like doing something new, and you can be new averse because you're just not habited at doing things new. So I've
Mhm.
become very sensitive to that because I'm introducing a lot of newness to my mother, and she's resistant to a lot of it.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, like, why are you resistant to this? You know what I mean? It really stemmed from like, do I have to watch one more episode of Family Feud? I might just lose it. All right. I just might lose it. Okay. And so, but it is what she's habited. Like, just looking at little things like that. Why won't you travel to different places? It's like if you won't go visit somebody in another city or someone who's around the block because you don't go, you're not going to want to venture out into, I'm going to go get on a plane. I'm going to go. So
Mhm.
this idea, I just want to, somebody, I don't know if you need to know this. I know I needed to know that being open and available to God's goodness, and as I continue to grow and develop, is a habit to develop. Like you practice your way to being open to brand new things and to be open to brand new experiences, which is going to require you to look at things differently and to do things differently.
Yeah.
So my son is I would say a little bit tired of me because I'll call him up sometimes and say, "Hey, do you feel like I XYZ?" And he'll be like, "Mom, no, you must be, what did granny do that
Yeah.
has you thinking that way?" Because I want to be continuously in a growth mindset. So
Yes. Yes. And the thing about it is it's the development. Um, One of the things I didn't say in the sermon because I didn't want people to misunderstand it. You only got so much time. Was I'm big on the belief that you and I and our contemporaries in New Thought leadership, the ministers, the teachers, the practitioners, that we have to accept that we're the Charles and Myrtle Fillmores, the Joseph Murphys, the Joe Goldsmiths, the Eric Butterworth, the Johnny Comans, etc. Now we have to accept that
mhm,
as a truth for our movement to succeed.
yeah, yeah,
And so as I was contemplating it, I was like, okay, if I go there in this sermon, it's going to take the sermon where I don't want it to go. But I was thinking about this movie that I saw about 10 years ago or so, 10, 12 years ago. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but the movie was about a man named Yip Man. They spell it IP in Mandarin, but in Cantonese it's Yip Man. He was the teacher of Bruce Lee. And the movie was about him being a young man studying and then moving away to another area. And in a shop, he bumps into an old man who he discovers he couldn't beat in Kung Fu. And the old man was his teacher's teacher. He was the son of his teacher's teacher or something like that. And the old man and the guy said to him, the style was Wing Chun Kung Fu. And he was like, well, what you were doing wasn't Wing Chun. And the old man said, everything that comes from my fist is Wing Chun. And I just started to think about how we get caught up in the limitations of a thing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Okay. You
yeah,
can't move like that. That's not Wing Chun. Everything that comes from my fist is Wing Chun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's a realization.
It's a realization.
It's a
And then the
realization.
young man the young version of him had to realize, oh my God, I'm living in a limitation. Okay. And if I want to be the best version of me, I can't pick up the limitations of my forefathers and foremothers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to be the best version of New Thought leaders we can be right now, then we have to recognize that every teaching that comes out of Reverend Sheree Thompson's mouth is New Thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different conversation, though.
That's it. No, listen.
That's working at high level.
No, but listen, I think that everybody can receive that. I'm receiving that. I'm receiving that because I think that there's an arena where we're limiting ourselves based on a myriad of reasons, right? Based on something grandma said, based on something somebody else said that you don't even know who they are anymore. And you've limited your expression based on that. So we get to, this is what I like about the idea that I'm in a belief tradition where we really take seriously, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That is a very, very, it's at the heart. It's not just receive and accept whatever someone else says. It's to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And renewing of your mind is a practice. It's a habit. We have to get engaged with it. You can't expect something new to come out of you if you won't entertain a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's what is that we all want change, but we don't want to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Velma says, I am that presence of God. I love it.
Yeah.
I am that presence of God here and now. So I think I'm going to stop there. I feel like this is, there's so many little amazing pieces of this lesson that we can put into practice. Again, I want to encourage you to go watch it in its entirety again. Even if you saw it, if you were there live, go and watch it again, because I know that sometimes I forget is that the repetition of things helps me to learn. It's one of the ways that we learn is through repetition. And we're in a society where there is so much content all over the place that you can think that I need to go wide, but sometimes you need to just like go deep in one thing. You've talked about your experiences, listen to tapes over and over and over again, because it's not so much memorizing it. It's also kind of like letting it sit and like, I just heard something new that time in that sentence because I was so enamored with the sentence before that, you know?
Yeah. When I'm going to be listening to, well, I have it on my iPad. Get Your Butt Out the Way sermon by Reverend Ike. I consider one of the greatest sermons that has ever been uttered by a human being is Get Your Butt Out the Way. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. And to say that I've listened to that, it's 2 sermons I've listened to probably more than any other sermons. 3, excuse me. Get Your Butt Out the Way. I've listened to it probably over 100 times. When I first got in New Thought, and I got the cassette, then I get the CD and whatever. It was a 1-hour lesson that Johnny Coleman did called Thought and Spoken Word. She rarely taught for an hour. It was like a special thing she did on a Wednesday or something. And it is, oh my God, power pack. And I haven't listened to it in a while, so I got to pull it back up. I misplaced the CD because I had to put it on CD. I used to have it on cassette. It was a tape by Les Brown called The Courage to Live Your Dream Part 2. It was from August of 1992 at Christ Universal Temple. And that was the sermon that got me here, which I still to this day think is one of the most effective lessons I've ever heard. Easily one of the most. Now, and here's the thing, what's tripped out about it is I listen to myself. I go back, I listen to my sermons. When I want to listen to a subject, what did I think about this subject before? Because here's the thing, as you go back and listen, you get to contemplate and integrate, because sometimes when you're preaching and teaching, you know this, Reverend Sheree, you're so much of an open conduit that it's not always sticking because you're trying to express it.
That's it, yeah.
So you got to go back sometimes and hear you saying to yourself what came through you. It makes a difference.
Yeah,
I got that from Reverend Ike. Reverend Ike said he would put his tapes on and play them as he slept, listening to himself. You got to listen to yourself.
It took me some time to be able to get there, to one, not be freaked out by my own voice. Like there was a lot of resistance. And when people talk about when you're doing what's yours to do, and aren't you afraid to speak in front of people and all of that? And I would tell them that when I was in school and there would be like another kid on the stage doing whatever speech or whatever, I would be in there like it would be killing me that I wasn't the one up there, even though I was deathly afraid to be in front of people. Like it was so learning to not to cringe at my own voice, or even as I was growing as a teacher, and I'm still growing, not to be judging myself. You know what I mean? From what I heard, like, okay, that was good. And I love the first time I was like, ooh, that was a good one. Like, when I said, listen, this is, I can witness my own growth.
Yes.
But you can't do that if you won't listen to yourself, if you won't look at yourself lovingly. And then of course, if you're teaching, you need to, we all have to grow. You don't want to be teaching the same, singing the same song, teaching the same tune, because you refuse to grow and become more of who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got a lot to work. So I'm glad. I hope y'all got something out of this, because I feel like a lot of this was Sheree's confession session, and then Sheree's therapy session, and then Sheree's coaching session, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So I hope you got what you needed to get. I do trust that you guys got what you needed to hear. There's been so much shared here. If this didn't shake you up a little bit, that there is a concept, that there's a divine spark in you, that there is a divine seed in you that is being nurtured and developed. Like that's, if I heard nothing else today, I know that I got to nurture my seed more.
Yes.
That I need to nurture that seed more so that I can express and have fruit and have an experience of God more than what I've had before.
Yes. And I think it's very important to recognize the work. Somebody's always watching. And sometimes the people, not to hear you preach or teach, for those who are here saying, I'm not a preacher, I'm not a teacher, I don't do this for a living like we do. But there's somebody that's they will get hope from your example.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you overcame something, the fact that you were able to change and transform your life, that you were able to create a better experience for yourself. You might be the motivation for someone else, and you never will know it. They might not ever tell you.
Yeah.
But they're watching and they're saying, okay, if they did it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've been blessed that I've been able to share back with some people, like what the impact they didn't even know they were making in my life. I have a lot of mother figures that I'm like, the way that you parented informed the way that I parent. And my kid is dope. You know what I mean? He's amazing.
Yeah. I paid attention to it. I paid attention. I remember having a conversation with a guy about how good of a father he was to his children. And I said, you are a great model for me, for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I let him know that he's moved on now in life. But at the time I was like, man, I pay attention to you. And it's another guy who I also told that both of these guys were from the church. And I told them, I pay attention to you.
Yeah.
Because I want to get this right.
Yeah. And you did. Your daughter's dope. She's amazing.
Well, I appreciate that.
She's a little ball of sunshine. And I just, again, and she's also so beautiful that it's like you would just not expect her to be so loving and sweet and kind, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
God said somebody's always watching.
That's my heart. And I always told her when she was little, when I realized she was going to be getting attention because of her physical beauty, I said, I need you to be more beautiful on the inside. Mm-hmm. I should say that to her all the time.
Yeah.
I never tried to diminish her physical looks, but I was like, I need you to be more beautiful on the inside. Be known because you're a beautiful person, mm-hmm. more than you are for outward beauty. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I told her it's always somebody ready to get rid of somebody that, like, I don't want to be around ugly acting people, mm-hmm. ugly behavior, ugly energy people. All of that has to do with, are you allowing the Christ to shine forth?
Yeah. Yeah. This is the reason for the season. It's for us to be, to grow into our awareness of who we are. Is that idea being birthed, nurtured, and coming through you.
I would love her to come on here with me, because she's so shy. I would love one day to be like, I'm
going to ask her. I can sometimes get them to do things. That they don't typically do. I'm going to ask her one day.
Well,
I'm going to ask her.
I'll leave that to you.
I'm going to try and see what I can do. Goodness. Good. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. So next week, you may have me back here on the Rewind with Reverend Rod. We'll see what his schedule looks like. And so we'll be back to continue to explore discovering the Christ within you. And I thank you so much, Rev, for making time today for the rewind and giving us some greater insight. Remember that that the collective is here for you as a part of the Christ Universal Temple community. So for those who can't walk through the doors, or if you can, the rewind is here for everybody. But if you can't walk through the doors, but you want to embrace and be a part of community and grow together, because you can only do so much on your own. There's something about coming together that changes everything. And so the collective is where you can do that.
Sounds
and
like
I'm glad to have you.
All right. So it sounds like a plan.
Yes. All right. So I want to bless you all to have a blessed day, to be a blessing. And we'll be back with the rewind next week. God bless.
God bless.